Morning, everyone. Welcome back to Moses Itauma week on Inside the Distance. It's getting like Shark Week on the Discovery Channel, but Moses Itauma is a hot topic of conversation at the moment. So we're just going to have a little bit of hypothetical fun and look at the Ring Magazine's heavyweight top 10, and we're gonna see how we think Moses fares against the current top 10 as of Ring Magazine. Moses Itauma is in at number 10, so there's only 9 now. When we do these, how I do these, just personally, I look at attribute versus attribute, skill for skill, ability for ability, and all those sort of factors. I don't really look into previous opponents. I don't look into stuff like that. I take into account current form. And one of the biggest things, one of the main problems with this is we've got to remember and we've got to take into account all the reasons where Moses Itauma has still got questions to answer. When he gets in a fight, when he has to have a gut check, when he gets in someone who's defiant and he's not going to fall over. Not that people have fallen over, he's dispatching them legitimately enough. But we have to take that into account that there are so many still unanswered questions for Moses Itauma. So it's quite difficult. This is hypothetical. You guys can all let me know what you think. Remember, these are just my fucking opinions. If you don't agree, that's fine. You know what I mean? So number 9, Martin Bakole. Martin Bakole. I don't know if we're ever really going to see an actually in-shape Martin Bakole ever again. He's been shocking. His condition is shocking. His weight is shocking. There isn't really any excuse. Yeah, he's got great hands. But now we know that he's hurtable. And I just, again, in terms of ability and class and correctness, boxing correctness, it would be a good fight. And would I give Bakole any much more than a puncher's chance? Just going on Bakole's last recent outings, no, not for me. I would take Moses over Bakole. A lot of people are saying that's the fight they'd like to see. I ain't that bothered about seeing. At this point, I'm not really that bothered about seeing Bakole against anyone, if I'm honest, at the moment on his last form. Zhilei Zhang, number 8. Now, I made a video a long time ago about Zhilei Zhang and Flip Hrgović. When there was a lot of talk of Zhilei Zhang being the danger man in the division, no one wanted to face him. This, that, and the other. He was a frightening puncher, which he was. But I said in a video that, to me, he was lazy. He had a lot of limitations. Yes, he could punch. Probably one of the biggest punchers in the heavyweight division. He's a massive mountain of a man. But I thought he had limitations. I think one of the limitations was his condition, and I just think he's quite lazy. I don't think his feet are always that good. And I just thought he was overrated. And I said that he would get found out at some point, and he did. So I would just pick Fabio Wardley to box his head off, beat him up, and end up stopping him around the mid-round somewhere, mid to late maybe. So, yeah, Zhilei Zhang. The blueprint's out there. He's been beaten. He is lazy. He's out of shape. And I don't know if that leads to Zhilei Zhang not using his boxing ability or not implementing his boxing ability as well as he could if he had the condition to do so. So I would pick, and again at this point, with all the questions that are still unanswered with Moses Itauma, I would still pick Moses Itauma over Zhilei Zhang. Too much, too good, too much ability. And I don't really think Zhang would drag him the distance. I think if he didn't stop him on his feet, he would end up knocking him out. Fabio Wardley. Now, that is an interesting one because at this point, you would kind of keep Fabio Wardley. You would probably keep Moses away from Fabio Wardley at this point. But I said I wasn't going to go on past opponents. I'm not going on past opponents per se, but I'm going to go on the abilities of past opponents because that would kind of mirror Moses a little bit. And I know they're still very different, but Justus Huni is quick. He's a very good boxer, almost a pure boxer at heavyweight. So that's probably the closest thing. And we saw how badly Fabio struggled against him. I mean, he was losing pretty much every round, pulled out of the bag in the end with a stoppage. And we also saw how when the first Wardley fight got into a fight, Fabio had nightmares. Now, I'm a massive Fabio fan. You know that. If you've been on my channel a long time, you know I'm a Fabio fan. He's from my area of the country. So I'm a huge Fabio fan. But this is a tough one. This really is a tough one. When Dave Allen said about Johnny Fisher in their sit-down thing that you can't be any good, you haven't been boxing long enough, you haven't had enough fights yet, you can't be good, or you can't be good enough, you haven't had enough, you've not driven on enough roads yet, you've only just passed your test. And the same sort of goes for Fabio Wardley. Fabio Wardley can't be that technically good yet. It's impossible. He just hasn't had enough fights. Fabio Wardley has gone a long way on his downright fucking doggedness, his spitefulness. He's a massively hard man, a real fighter, a real spiteful fighter. Love it. I love Fabio. I'm a huge fan. But if we go on ability and stuff like that, he's not. Moses is light years away from Fabio in terms of ability, talent, boxing correctness. So that is a really tough one. I mean, if that got to sort of the mid rounds, I would expect Fabio to be well down on the cards in that. And barring, again, going back to sort of Justice Hooney, I'm not using Justice Hooney per se as the example, but can you imagine if Justin, and a lot of people say this online, if Hooney had a punch, if Hooney was a puncher, that fight could have ended in a different result. And it could have been Hooney with his hand raised. So that's a tough one. I don't know where I'd go. Maybe 55, 45 Moses, maybe 60-40 Moses. And I hate to say that because I'm a massive Fabio fan. And yet again, I go back to, we still have the unanswered questions about Moses, his gas tank, him in a real dogfight, and that kind of stuff. But just I look at the two in the ring, knowing how easily Justice Hooney outboxed Fabio. I'm not saying I love Fabio a bit, but just objectively, I think I'd lean towards Moses. Not by a lot, but I would lean towards Moses. Flip Hrgovic. Now, Flip Hrgovic for me is the fight I want to see next to Moses Itauma. Possibly the best chin in the heavyweight division. One of them certainly, outside of sort of Jarrell Miller, Alexander Usyk, and a few others. So I don't think Moses will blow away Hrgovic early. Saying that, I know the stories of Hrgovic in the gym is he looks fantastic. He's a fantastic gym fighter. And you see the odd bit of it in fights. But for me, again, as I said before, I made a video about him and Zhilei Zhang, saying that I didn't think they were kind of what people were thinking they are. I think that's been proved. I see Flip Hrgovic rapidly turning into a gatekeeper, even at this point. It's why he's being talked about as a fight for Moses. It's a gatekeepery type fight. So when it comes to Hrgovic, he's just there to be hit all night. And that's great that he's got the chin and he can take the shot he does. He's very right-hand happy, and I don't think that right hand is that good. I don't think Hrgovic's a puncher. I just don't. I don't think he's a puncher at heavyweight. I don't think he throws that right hand technically well enough to generate as much power out of it as he possibly could. He's a little bit arm punchy at times, Hrgovic is. He's a little bit stiff. He's a little bit upright. So I'd love to see the Hrgovic fight next. As I said before, I don't think it will because Hrgovic has got the cut, and I think they'll want Moses out quicker than that. But, so, I mean, again, that is a tough one. That is a tough one. But just on ability alone, and at the points in these, and remember as well, the other thing about Moses too, he hasn't lost yet. When you get fighters who have already lost, they've already took it out, losing becomes easier the more you do it. You're never going to like losing, but it comes easier to accept once you've lost once, lost twice, whatever. So I'll have to again lean towards Moses against Flip Hrgovic. Number 5, Anthony Joshua. Now, I'm a big Joshua fan, always was. I wasn't one of the Joshua haters. I was a big Joshua supporter. And I've said before that when he's good, the stuff that he does fantastically. He done everything wrong against Daniel Dubois. Mistakes in the build-up, mistakes on the night, and then in the ring, every technical mistake you could make, he kind of made. So at this point, and the problem with Anthony Joshua is, and this has been a problem for a while, is that we've seen Anthony Joshua stays hit. I don't think his chin is particularly bad, but he takes a long time to shake the effect of shots, if ever in a fight. You know, when he gets hit, it takes him. Unlike Tyson Fury, who can get hurt and get dropped, but recovers in an instant, Anthony Joshua stays hit. And now we know that. Now we've seen repeated occasions where that has happened. Joshua has a fragility, an obvious aesthetic fragility about him now. He gets hit, he gets hit right, and it doesn't even have to be that hard. But if he gets hit and he gets affected, the effects are going to stay with him, and he's all at sea, unfortunately. And this is, again, I'm a massive Anthony Joshua fan, always have been. If you've been on my channel long enough, you know I'm a big fan of Anthony Joshua. But he just looks too fragile at this point. He is just too fragile at this point. And we all know that Anthony Joshua is kind of an overthinker or a critical thinker, to sort of use whatever terminology you want. But do you want someone who's an overthinker going in there? And we know that previous fights before, we've been asking people on the way to the ring, how should I go about this? And so, can you imagine the thinking problems that he would have going into a fight with Moses Itauma? Someone technically that good and sort of technically difficult to work out a successful game plan against. Can you imagine the doubt and the questions that would be in Joshua's mind going in against Itauma, and Atuma's reputation and the performances Atuma's already put in, adding to sort of Joshua's compounding his mental sort of, he's overthinking that sort of thing. So at this point, and this is horrible to say, I think Itauma could do Joshua inside 3 rounds. I hate to say that. And again, don't get in the comments and start, just my opinion, and I'm a Joshua fan, and I'd hate to see it, so I don't see that fight ever happening. It's never going to happen. I wouldn't want to see it happen because I'm a big Joshua fan, you know that. But again, Moses Itauma beats Anthony Joshua for me. Daniel Dubois, now that is an interesting one, because no one's really talked about Daniel Dubois as an opponent. And I suppose a lot of that is down to the fact that they are both Queensbury. Moses is Queensbury. So I don't really see that happening. I think they'll want to avoid each other. Daniel Dubois very much wants to be on the comeback trail, and Moses is on the up and coming. So it's not a good fight for either of them at this point. But if they did fight, how badly is Daniel Dubois going to be affected by the last Alexander Usyk defeat? And again, there's kind of a blueprint there for Daniel Dubois, isn't there? If you looked in the second fight with Alexander Usyk, for me it was very much the case that early on, Usyk completely befuddled Dubois mentally. Dubois came out with that wide. He was jabbing up the middle, jabbing up the outside. All those little things just to confuse Daniel Dubois. And he looked done really quickly, like he just couldn't compute what was going on, and it was all too much. And Moses is going to do the same kind of things to befuddle him. Saying that, we do know how hard Daniel Dubois punches. But Daniel Dubois lost. Yes, he sat down against Joe Joyce, broken orbital, don't hold it against him at all. But if you've had life and death with the likes of Joe Joyce, how are you going to do with Moses Itauma? You know what I mean? And again, this is not me sort of going on. It is going on past people's mind, just the attributes of a Joe Joyce and what Joe Joyce brought to that fight, or a fighter like Joe Joyce, and seeing how Daniel Dubois struggled. Daniel Dubois excelled against the likes of Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua did everything wrong and was there for the taking. And Daniel Dubois did look a killer, and that kind of left him in the Usyk fight. That one's really tough. That one is really tough, because if Daniel Dubois was in the right frame of mind, in the right place, and came out of destruction on his mind, Daniel Dubois is a lot cuter boxer than people give him credit for. I just think sometimes his mind doesn't let him do that, because it goes into this closed off, almost, I don't know. But I think Daniel Dubois is a decent boxer. I think he's decent technically. He does a lot of things I'm not a fan of, but he does a lot of things very well. So that is a tough one. Daniel Dubois is a tough one, because we know he does punch so hard, and on his day, he can't give anyone trouble. But yeah, That's a tough. The more I think, when I first thought about that one, back then in the bar, I thought I'd pick Moses, and I probably still would. One's on the ascent. One is kind of almost finished his ascent. He's not on the decline in Daniel Dubois, but that is a tough one. I'd maybe edge towards Moses at this point, knowing that we haven't seen a weakness in Moses' psyche, we haven't seen a weakness in Moses' mentality, where we have seen elements of Daniel Dubois that sort of don't bode well, and that's been proven in recent fights. Ajit Kabayel, the sort of danger man of the moment, and rightly so. Now, this one's quite a tough one as well, because he's another fighter who's very much in the ascendancy. He's very much making a name for himself. He's kind of still at this point almost a trade fighter. He's not really known by your sort of casual boxing fan. He's great to the body. He looks fit, good chin. Kabayel, I still think, has elements of, if we just go ability for ability and skill for skill. Ajit Kabayel he's not the fastest. He hasn't got the fastest feet. He hasn't got the greatest defense. He does get hit, but he can. Sometimes he doesn't look that quick, but some of his punches are deceptively fast. From the moment he starts, they seem to be there. So his hands are deceptively quick. He throws combinations quite well, and he goes to the body probably better than anyone in the division. So Ajit Kabayel. Again, with Ajit Kabayel, we're yet to see. He's kind of in the same boat as Moses Itauma in a little bit in terms of the level he's at. He's a little bit further along because he's fought higher level opposition, but he's very much in the ascendancy, and there are probably unanswered questions about Kabayel as well. Just going on abilities, skill for skill, ability for ability, talent for talent, I think Moses is better. I think he's more natural. He's more of a natural fighter, more naturally gifted, more natural attributes. But Ajit Kabayel is hard. He punches hard. That's an interesting one. That is an interesting one. It's certainly one you wouldn't want to make for Moses anytime soon, especially not over the next couple of fights we'll for. Maybe another one, then maybe an Ajit Kabayel. But remember, Kabayel's they're going to steer him on his own path as well, aren't they? They probably won't want to meet Moses yet, although it could be the situation where they end up meeting in some kind of eliminator. I don't know. Tough one to pick. Ajit Kabayel. Again, just on the attributes, the speed, the superior footwork, just superior technical. But I would lean towards Moses, but that would be a hell of an interesting fight. Joseph Parker. Now, this is an interesting one because a lot of people say Moses aren't ready for Joseph Parker. Joseph Parker, everyone's favourite heavyweight. Lovely fella, great guy, done so much. I remember when Joseph Parker came about, he was described as like a massive hype job, weren't he, when he first sort of broke out of New Zealand, I think it was. And he's really got the respect of the boxing world, fans and public alike, hasn't he? But for me, I thought when Joseph Parker boxed Bacoli, I thought he was too heavy. I thought for me he was blown a little bit, even after that short period of time in the Bacoli fight. And Bacoli caught him with a couple of punches. And I remember myself and Joe Stunner noticed this. I'm sure you all did too, but there was a couple of punches that Bacoli landed that Joseph Parker felt the effects of. They weren't massively hurtful, but he got sort of momentarily stunned by a couple of punches. You could kind of tell. Hit it very well, but nonetheless he got punched. And me and Joe have also talked about this quite a lot, that in recent years, Joseph Parker, to me, and Joe sort of said the same, we think he's looked a bit fragile in fights recently, and that maybe the time is right for someone, and Joe is kind of there. And that's not to take anything away from Joseph Parker. Massive fan, think he's great. I also don't like the fact, like I said before, the weight he came in at. I think Joe, against a high-speed fighter with a lot of movement and good footwork, like Moses, if Joe couldn't get out of there early, I think coming in at that weight, I think by the mid-rounds, I think Joe would really be feeling the effects of that weight. The other thing is that when you look at Joseph Parker and look at some of the guys he's struggled against, you do have to answer questions or ask questions. You look at the Dillian White fight, you look at the Joe Joyce fight, which was kind of almost painful to watch for a bit. But I've always thought Joseph Parker is better, lighter a lot lighter than that. I don't like him that heavy. And let's not remember, or let's not forget, when Joseph Parker boxed Deontay Wilder, this is a Deontay Wilder that turned up and basically didn't throw a punch. He basically didn't turn up. His body turned up, but any ambition didn't turn up with him, and he basically didn't throw a punch. And remember, Joseph Parker still couldn't really land that cleanly. He did a couple of times on Deontay Wilder, and that was a guy who was very upright, very negative, and didn't really throw his hands. And Joseph Parker won. Brilliant. He beat Deontay Wilder at a time when he was still considered dangerous. But Deontay Wilder didn't do anything, and Joseph Parker still had trouble landing and still couldn't get rid of him. So, again, at this point, I think I would make... And a lot of people talk about the Joshua fight against Joseph Parker, how bad... I thought Joshua's performance was pretty good. I thought he made a fairly easy night out of Joseph Parker. And for those sort of reasons, I think I would pick Parker. I would pick Moses. I would pick Moses over Joseph Parker. Just from what I've seen, and up till this point, I think Joseph Parker is in a place where he's kind of ready for the taking. And I wouldn't want to see Joseph Parker get beat. I think he's great. I love him. But I just think, sometimes stars align, don't they? And timing is everything. And you got Moses on the way up, and you got Joseph Parker where he is. A lot of hard fights. He seems to be getting heavier, which I'm not a fan of. And I'd make Moses maybe a 60-40, 65-35 favourite in that. Again, just me. Tyson Fury. Now, Tyson Fury is one of the top 10 heavyweights that I think possibly could beat Moses. And just hold on a minute, because I know I'm not a Tyson Fury fan, the man. We know that. We've had these discussions many times. But when it comes to ability, now he hasn't got the beautiful motion and the correctness in which Moses Itauma does stuff, but he makes his physicality work for him. He makes his body composition work for him. He knows it all. He's seen it all. And on a sort of a pure boxing level, he's right up there. Now, at this stage of his career, he's had the hard fights. He's really coming towards the end. We've seen the decline in Fury, if you like, but he still knows an absolute ton about this game. Yes, Fury's not a puncher, never has been, so he wouldn't really keep Moses off with that. But I do see Fury as someone having the ability to give Moses problems. Now, if you were talking to me about the Tyson Fury of 4 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I'd make him probably a favourite and a quite a substantial favourite. At this point in his career, Tyson Fury's declined so much. But nonetheless, I do think Tyson Fury is one of two heavyweights at the moment that would really cause Moses Itauma problems, and we'd really find out about Moses Itauma and have the ability to beat him. Whether Fury has enough left at this stage of his career to use that ability to beat Moses, I don't know. But Fury, for me, is certainly one of the fighters out there because he could match Moses technically. Not looking the way Moses does, not looking as sweet and as fluid and as skillful, but technically he's got enough tools. A prime Tyson Fury has enough tools to deal with a Moses Itauma. I'm not saying who wins, I don't know. I'm just saying Tyson Fury, the best Tyson Fury, you'd probably have to say would beat Moses now. He probably just knows too much. And Fury also knows too much because he's faced a lot more situations. That experience is kind of tantamount to knowledge. And I just think Fury would know too much. And possibly still at this point, but there's just been a serious physical decline in Tyson Fury. So that would balance the books a little bit. So at this point, just on youth and freshness and vitality, I would probably have a slight edge. Oh, I don't know. It's a tough one. Because I'm not sure how much Fury's got left, to be quite honest with you. And then the big dog, Alexander Usyk. Now, again, when we're talking about Moses Itauma's, superb technical ability and skills and knowledge and ability and attitude and drive and will and fighting spirit, Alexander Usyk is the top dog. He's the tier 1 operator. He's top of the food chain. I don't think Moses Itauma would beat Alexander Usyk. He may, but Alexander Usyk has everything, and along with that, he has a great chin, and along with that, he's now a puncher. You know, say what you like about Daniel Dubois. Daniel Dubois got a good chin. It's not really his chin that lets him down. It's what's going on upstairs that lets him down, and what Usyk's now stopped him twice. So Alexander Usyk really is the anomaly, isn't he, in all of this? He's a freak. It is what it is. Moses Itauma beat Alexander Usyk? No, not yet. Not for me. He may do, but not for me. No, if I was putting money on that, I've bet against Usyk so many times, and I'll probably never do it again. The only thing that's really going to beat Usyk is time and his decline, just purely due to age. But at this point, you know, if Usyk was younger, 2 or 3 years younger, and we got this 24 months down the line, after Moses had another 2 or 3 actual meaningful tests and had come through and still looked as promising as he does and answered a lot more questions, then let's go 50-50. But at this point, Alexander Usyk for me. Anyway, that's it. I'll see you all soon.